What's up, guys? Evan Jarvis here. In today's video, you are going to learn how to combat loose, aggressive, maniacal players, how to incorporate overbetting into your game, how to fire multi-barrel bluffs effectively, and why, if you aren't multi-barreling often as a bluff or mixing up your bet sizes, you are burning money. This is part 2. So if you haven't yet watched part 1, I invite you to do so. I've put a link in the video description so you can watch it very easily, and that way you can get the most out of this lesson. And when you're done with that and you're all caught up to speed, then let's get into the action and let's get stacking.
You have an opponent opening 40% of the hands, a total maniac. A lot of you guys tell me you have problems with these type of players, so I thought I'd throw in a hand, just discussing how to tame them. You're in a $215 tournament in Vegas, a bunch of locals and some decent regulars. Online, this would be the equivalent of a 109. You decide to 3-bet to get this guy heads up. He calls. You c-bet half pawn on this board. He calls. He calls you and you get this turn, the jack of spades. If you answer B, you have to say an amount. There is 540 in the pot. There are actually 2 correct answers for this one, but let's first discuss the incorrect one before we get into the most correct answer. For one, you do not want to check. Just because a guy is loose aggressive does not mean he's not human. Most guys do not raise on the turn hardly at all. Guys, if you look at any database management tool, you're going to see that people play nowhere near game theory optimal. They're unbalanced, which means the style which will make you the most money will be unbalanced as well, just as if you were playing rock, paper, scissors for money and a guy consistently threw rock. An example, if you're playing against a rock, paper, scissors player who randomizes, then your best is to randomize, da-da-da, we just said this. If you look at most databases, you'll see people are closer to the kid who keeps throwing rock because he loves throwing his fist. You won't see balanced players. Case in point, look at the raise turn c-bet number, guys. So that would be here. It's 8.1%. You flop a set more than 8% of the time. People do not bluff on the turn nearly enough. So if you have some kind of equity and you know your opponent is calling you wide, then you should be taking a lot of shots. Now, why should you not overbet here? While an overbet will make you money most likely, it's not absolutely necessary. A great overbet move is a lot like a great curveball. You don't want to keep throwing it and letting your opponent get used to seeing it. You want to stun the guy once or twice when you really need it. Here in this situation, you don't need to overbet. Can anyone guess why? Well, remember in the first situation I showed you, your opponent mostly had pairs on the turn. However, this guy is loose passive, so he likely has a lot of high cards along with his garbage pairs. Also, that card is excellent for bluffing. The great thing about loose aggressive players is most of them are just bullies. If you put them in their place with a 3-bet, they turn into passive chumps post-flop. Guys, if you learn nothing else from me today, learn this. Get the fear out of your eyes. None of these people are that good. I know all the great poker players. I have 4 million in earnings across 4 continents. I'm telling you, none of these guys are that good, including myself. I have a ton to learn about poker, and most people have a ton to learn. They're not seeing into your soul. If you 3-bet them and take charge, they're usually going to crap themselves, especially if you're not a white male in your 30s. They're terrified practically anytime someone over the age of 50 3-bets them, or a woman 3-bets them. And the best part about these guys is they'll flat you with an ace on the flop, an ace high, because they're worried they'll become quote-unquote exploitable if they fold that hand. Look at this flop again. What does he call you with here? King X, ace high, an 8, a flush draw, a 3, small pairs, 2, 2, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 9, 9, 10, 10. He probably 4-bets everything better. Which of those hands is helped by the offsuit jack? I call this turn the pesky middle card. It's awful for loose opponents who call flops too wide. Because think about his flop calling range. Ace high, an 8, a flush draw, a 3, small pairs, 2-2, 4-4, 5-5, 6-6, 7-7, 9-9, 10-10. Oh, none of those hands like that turn card. People underestimate how powerful that turn card is. Nearly 70% of his range is not better than second pair here. That means 7 hands out of 10 are third pair or worse. Okay, so we're back to cumulative. I set it to middle pair. 31.4% of hands are better than middle pair, which is another way of saying 70% of the time he has third pair or worse. You have a great leg to stand on if you want a continuation but bluff here on the turn. Also, why 60% instead of 50%? Like 110% is fine. It just polarizes you a little bit. And 60% works really well too, and people just don't see it coming as much. To deceptive players, 60% looks like you're trying to build a pot, whereas 50% looks like a normal c-bet. They're more likely to think twice with a third pair if you bet 60%. I run this bluff constantly, guys. Even in World Poker Tour events, trust me, that 10% makes a huge difference. All right, that one was tough too. I promise for real this time, guys. The next 3 will not be that difficult. You raise pre-flop in a 215 live. You get a younger reg to call you on the flop. Everyone else folds. You get this flop. You c-bet, he calls. You get this turn card. If you answer B, you have to say an amount. There's 350 in the pot. All right, time is up. The correct answer when you get the ace turn and the stacks are deep is to give up. Pay attention to this next part because it's important. You don't need to be a whiz with Flopzilla to understand that attacking a 30% range is much easier than attacking a 12% range. People will open with 20 to 30% of their hands all the time. That's why I attack those ranges relentlessly with 3 bets. People with flat with 30% of their hands or more from the big blind. So that's why I try to isolate that player with bigger raises pre-flop. People cold call, though, with 9 to 12% of their hands. You can take one shot at that range, but that's it. Look at how few hands he has on this turn, guys. Look at how different that looks than the other Flopzilla analyses we looked at. The biggest problem with this turn card is it's the oldest trick in the book to bet there as a bluff. Everybody since 2005 has said, ooh, I better represent the ace on the turn. So most guys will not fold to your bet on the turn. And if they're calling you with just their weak pairs and folding every single draw, that's going to, like, even if they fold their draws here on the turn, they're still going to call you 9 times out of 10, practically. Worse, people like to call with ace high on the flop all the time with a dry 1 high card board. So this turn smashes their range. Finally, my biggest problem is that people in general do not like folding to turn bets. This is an average. This is just an example of a database. This isn't the big databases I use. This is not the system I use for it. This is an average, but this is what an average database would look like. And this is a really easy one you can pull up on Hold'em Manager if you ever want to play with analytics. And if you pull up one of those and you look at pretty much any database on earth, what you'll notice is the fold to c-bet is going to be fold to turn c-bet. Here it's at 29.8. That's pretty typical. That means they call or raise 7 times out of 10 to a turn c-bet. So a half pot c-bet would not be profitable because that needs to work 33% of the time. You add in the fact you're out of position, he's floating with many ace highs, and his fold to turn c-bet is likely much lower here. Real quick, here's another. Okay, we're going to go a couple more. I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight. I know your time is valuable. So you raise on the button here with 7-7. let's make this tournament a little more exotic. Let's say it's a $300 six max in Quebec, where I'm headed in a few weeks. Because that's how lucky I am. I get to go play cards other places. Online, this would be an online major in terms of difficulty, say a 215. Lots of bozos, lots of great players. This guy is quiet, but seems to know a thing or two about the game. He's played solid every time you've entered a pot with him. He calls your raise. This flop comes out. It's check to you. Your move. And if you answer B, you have to say an amount. There's 376 in the pot. All right, time is up. Guys, whenever two cards 9 or higher come on the board, you have to be extremely careful with c-betting. So here you're checking. If you check, that's an okay option. If you bet 50% of the pot, I really do not like that as a c-bet. But if you bet 25 to 33% of the pot, that actually works really well. I have this guy calling with absolutely everything pre-flop, and if he's just playing the normal pairs or draws, people usually play here, then he's playing nearly 7 times out of 10. So you'll notice, like, if I just mark the pairs in every draw and every gut shot, because let's be honest, most people do not fold ace-jack to a c-bet on that board, or even like jack-8, then he's playing 68.5% of the time. A half-pot bet needs to work how often, guys? 33% of the time. That means our opponent has to defend 67% of his hands to make sure that our bet is not immediately profitable. He's doing that, as you can see here, with the 68.5% at the bottom. I cannot tell you how terrible this c-bet is when someone cold calls you in position. Like, this is with all these hands, it's still a bad c-bet. Imagine if somebody calls you from the cutoff. Then the guy just has a hand 7.5, 8 times out of 10. And you'll just watch people who are supposed to be these great poker players just c-bet that board into multiple players with like 4s. And you just be flabbergasted when their c-bet doesn't work. And people ask me why I don't watch poker on TV. It's I love poker, but if I'm going to study the game, I have to study stuff that's going to work. Just because, unfortunately, I don't have as much time to watch the featured final tables and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway. Now, if you check, that's fine, but I prefer you do that with the 7 of clubs so you have a backdoor flush draw. It also... It also opens you up to getting bluffed off your hand. However, because if you check there and the guy leads the turn, nobody really knows what percentage of the time that's going to happen. So, like, what percentage of the time do you think he leads that turn? It's all over the map with everybody. There's some guys that lead that turn 70% of the time. There's some guys that are like 10% of the time, and it's really hard to find rhyme or reason. That's the other thing. Whenever I recommend a number to you, that number is usually pretty consistent with like 8 out of 10 players, 9 out of 10 players. If it's all over the map, I'm not going to mention it. Because maybe the average is like 55% of the time, but that doesn't tell you anything if the distribution is wide enough, because nobody is playing 55%. Nobody is leading 55% of the time. If you bet 33% of the pot here, that needs to work 25% of the time, which is really likely to work because he had no pair or draw 32% of the time. Also, if it doesn't work, they're likely to call and check turn to you, which means you get 2 cards as a bonus, helping you realize your equity. All right, guys. Let's do one more. Your heads up in a daily deep stack at the Rio with 650 runners. Your opponent, a French gentleman in his 40s, limps in heads up. You check back with Queen 4 offsuit. You check to him, and he leads into this board. Your move. If you answer C, you have to specify an amount. The pot is 11,700. All right, guys, time is up. Now I'm going to let you know, if you said raise to 10,000 here, I think that's wrong. People are getting way more wary of check raises. That's the biggest thing I notice when I play live now, when I play online, is people are getting wary of check raises. So, what do you think you should do? A lot of times you should just raise bigger. Guys, you got to get the fear out of your eyes. That is the biggest leak you will find in post-flop play. This has the most obvious solution in the world if you think about it. But you'll see, what do you think most guys do here? I watch poker day in and day out, and heads up is the most important part of a poker tournament. The biggest payout jump is from second to first place. And you'll see a lot of guys just not go for it there. They're just going to wait for their hand, which is what the other guy is doing. Because think about it, when people get heads up in a poker tournament, what's the first thing they think? Do not screw up. So that leaves you, that's going to get you, you're going to win the tournament an extra 5% of the time, 10% of the time, if you just go out there and try to take down the pots that nobody is likely to have anything. In this one, it's really unlikely anyone he has anything. Also, I watch my students get up, heads up in tournaments and fold to the play, and it drives me up a wall. This guy is telling you that you can't play. That's what this bet chain means. You're not giving him this pot. If you want to play tournament poker for consistent money, you have to get very comfortable with heads up play. And this to me is amazing that people will fold to this. You're not giving him this pot. Imagine if he has ace-8 of diamonds there and limp leads this flop, and the guy check raises to 1.5x pot. Imagine, okay, so you limp ace-8 of diamonds. You're trying to be tricky. Random guy you don't know checks to you. The board comes 8 of hearts, 6 of hearts, 2 of hearts. He checks, you bet something, and he check raises 1.5x pot. How do you feel about ace-8? I cannot tell you how many times people show me top pair and fold in this situation when I do this check raise. It blows my mind. It's not till you get to WPT main events when you're deep in the tournament that anyone knows this play. But this is just basics. All you have to do to figure out how often a bet needs to work is divide that bet by the size of the pot you'd win if the opponent folded. So I'm showing you guys how I do that, which is, okay, so first, take the suggested bet plus how much is in the middle there. And you put those together. So you'd have 27, 30, 100. You're going to need 2 calculators. And then you're going to have to divide that bet size by the size of that pot. So that would be 15,600 but divided by 27.3. And then you're going to get 0.5714. So, which is 57% of the time this play needs to work in order for it to be profitable with no cards. Which means your opponent needs to defend with what percentage of his hands here? 43%. If he doesn't do that, you can make money with any 2 cards. Which you really deserve because he's probably leading this flop with all of his limping range, which is a wildly exploitable play, which deserves an exploitable rebuke. But look, guys, if he defends all of his aces of hearts with any 6 or better, meaning he calls a 1.4x pot size check raise with 6-3 of diamonds here, He's defending 38% of the time, which means he's folding 62% of the time. He's going to get rocked here. And I promise you, they do not defend sixes here. Alright guys, this video has been brought to you by Master the Flop. Guys, this is the video series I did that started it all. I'm still blown away by the results my students got after they watched this video pack. Without getting into too many details about my life when this video series was made, the long and the short of it is this. In the midst of a health scare, I was trying to recount like every post-flop trick I used to get folds and insane value out of marginal hands while always keeping the ball in my court. And these files were the result. I never thought they would be as popular as they were with my students and with people who bought these videos. In this series, you're going to learn how to play the most common trouble boards, get more value, check back correctly, and always stay in control. I show all my work. It's all combinatorics. You can see all the ranges. And just ask yourself, is that how people play? And if the answer is yes, the overwhelming majority of the time, that is how they play, then this will show you the exploitable plays that will help you get folds when you need them. I have a system that I teach that's very much about chopping out pots pre-flop and chopping out pots on the flop. And to go beyond that, you need Master the Flop. You've heard me discuss that in other videos here, which was, keep the betting lead, those kind of concepts, PBSH, position bigger pots, superior hands, heads up. This is expanding past all of this. This is, how should you be thinking during the hands? When should you check back a flop? When should you buy the showdown? How do you bluff people on high card boards? How do you bluff people on suited boards, wheeled boards, paired boards, when straight draws come out, flush draw boards, when all the board is small cards, and more.
And that wraps up this part of the training series. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a lot from it. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up to let me know how I'm doing. And if you learned something from this video, please let me know in the comments what your key takeaway or your biggest aha moment from watching this video was. I promise you, if you do that and then look at the other comments that are there, you're going to learn a whole lot more. This is the beauty of YouTube. This is the beauty of community. This is how we grow as a team, by sharing our insights, reading what others' insights were, and engaging in discussion to further develop those thought processes. I really hope you're enjoying this learning series. And when you're ready to watch more training lessons like this one, feel free to check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/grips, or come by my website, www.grips.com, and join Team Grips for exclusive discounts, offers, and training opportunities. We got a whole lot of good ones coming on the way, and I hope that you are someone I will be getting to share them with. Let's get stacking. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it educational and entertaining. If you want to join Team Grips, click on that subscribe button and tap that bell to be notified every time a new video goes live. For behind the scenes updates and motivational quotes from my poker journey, follow me on Instagram. And when you're ready to take one step closer to becoming poker's next champion, click on me in 3, 2, 1, and let's get stacking.